I greet you all and a warm welcome to the Manifested e-learning platform. Today we are continuing with the topic audit documentation. The subject is auditing and assurance. Today we moving to the second subtopic, which is sources, features and purposes of working papers. So those are three things, but candidates will note that there is a repetition in the syllabus. The purposes of working papers we discussed in our last session under reasons and importance of audit documentation. The points are similar. So we will not go into the purposes of audit working papers again because we covered in our previous session. That now leaves us with the sources and features. In this lesson, we are going to discuss the sources and features of working papers. And just to remind you candidates, we did define audit documentation as working papers. In other words, auditing working papers is also known as audit documentation, and these working papers are the bedrock of audit engagement because they provide comprehensive record of the work that is performed, the evidence that is gathered, and the conclusions reached by the auditor. That is to mean that audit working papers or audit documentation includes or comprises or encompasses three main things. One is the work performed by the auditor, the evidence obtained by the auditor, and also conclusions that is reached, including what we call audit procedures. All those have to be documented. When that is documented, then we refer to all that as working papers. So in this lesson, we first want to list the sources of audit documentation. Sources. Now, in highlighting the sources of working papers, we are going to group these working papers into three categories. One category is the documents that are prepared by the auditor himself. These are documents that are internal to the audit firm. Documents prepared by the auditor. So that's the first category. One, by the auditor. They are documents that are prepared by the auditor. These are documents that are internal to the audit firm. Then we are going to list another category of documents or sources which include the documents obtained from the client. The client is the firm that is being audited. The auditor can also gather documents from the firm that is auditing, what we call the auditee company. Understand? Then we have documents obtained from third parties. So there are three categories. We'll start with the documents prepared by the auditor. These are internal to the audit firm. One such document is what we call the audit plan. Audit plan is a source of working paper. Working paper, the audit plan. This is the overall strategy for the audit, which outlines the scope, the timing, and the direction of the audit. There has to be an audit plan. Two, we have audit or programs. Now, audit programs details the list of specific procedures to be performed for each audit area. For each audit area, there has to be what we call an audit program, which is a detailed list of specific procedures that the auditor is intended to perform in a specific area. It could be in relation to fixed assets or inventories, or it could be debtors or creditors or loans or cash. Each of those areas, is required what we call an audit program. What will be the specific procedures that will be performed in each and every specific area. audit program. That is a document that is prepared by the auditor. Audit program. Risk assessment. 3. We have what we call risk assessment and materiality calculation. Risk assessment and materiality assessment. This is documentation of identified risks of material misstatements and also the determination of materiality levels. That has to be done by the auditor and it ought to be documented. Number 4, the fourth source of documents prepared by the auditor is internal control evaluation documentation. Internal control evaluation documentation. Internal control evaluation documentation. The auditor candidates at some point is required to evaluate the internal control system of the company that is being audited, and this internal control evaluation has to be documented. And this may include flowcharts, narratives, and also questionnaires that are used to understand and to evaluate the client's internal control system. For the auditor to understand the client's internal control system, the auditor may generate a questionnaire which the auditor uses to gather evidence or knowledge or information from the client. The questionnaire will be sent to the client will fill in the questionnaire, and that questionnaire has to be part of the sources of the documents that are prepared by the auditor. Internal control evaluation documentation. That is source number 4. Now, source number 5 is testing documentation. Now, apart from evaluating the internal control system, the auditor is also required to carry out certain tests. Testing. Then number 5 is sample selections. Sample selections. Now, this is the basis for selecting items for testing. The auditor has to document the basis for selecting samples for testing, because we know candidates, the auditor may not be able to carry out procedures on each and every transaction, on each and every document. The auditor has to sample, come up with a sample, and then use the sample to obtain the evidence that is required. So the basis of selecting items for sampling or for testing, like we may have invoices, the auditor cannot sample all invoices. He must take a few invoices. So the basis for selecting certain invoices has to be documented. You understand? Then there is also test results. Test results. And candidates' test results are just the actual findings from performing audit procedures like confirmation responses, observations, calculations, and so on. Then you have, of course, reconciliations. These are prepared by the auditor to reconcile client records with external information, for example, bank reconciliations. The auditor may carry out reconciliation. That means reconciling the information provided by the audit company with the external information. So that has to be part of the documents that are prepared by the auditor. The auditor can carry out reconciliation. Okay, for example, bank reconciliations, accounts receivable confirmations, and so on. Of ledger accounts can be carried out by the auditor. Analysis of the ledger accounts. This is the detailed examination of specific general ledger accounts, which also forms part of the documents that are prepared by the auditor. FGHIJ, journal adjustments or adjusting journal entries and reclassification entries. This is the proposed entries to correct misstatements or reclassify items for proper financial statement presentation. Memoranda and summaries. Summaries and memoranda. This is K. GHIJK. Summaries and memoranda. These are just written explanations of audit issues, discussions with the management, and also conclusions that are reached. Time budgets. IJKL. Time budgets. Time budgets also form part of the documents prepared by the auditor. Time budgets and time records. These are required in order to monitor audit progress and efficiency. We may also have review notes. Review notes. IJKLMN. Review notes. Review notes. What are these? This is the documentation of the review process by senior auditors, managers, and partners. The senior managers and partners may be required at some point before the conclusion of the audit to come and review the work that is done by the junior audit staff. And this work that is done by reviewing the work that is done by the junior staff has also to be documented in form of what we call review notes. So these are the documents, candidates, prepared by the auditor. These are documents that are internal to the audit firm. Now let's discuss the documents that are obtained from third parties. Number 2. Documents obtained. Let's begin, before we move to that, let's begin with the client. Documents obtained from the client. This is the auditing company. The auditor may also obtain working papers from the company that is being audited, the auditing company. Now the first one is the financial statements. These are documents internal to the client. These are documents internal to the auditor. The first key document is financial statements. Financial statements. Financial statements. This is a draft and final financial statements, trial balances, and so on. Ledgers and journals, number 2. Ledgers and journals. Ledgers and journals. Ledgers and journals are prepared by the client and they form part of the accounting system. Like the general ledger, the subsidiary ledgers like the accounts receivable ledger, the accounts payable ledger. We may also have cash, the journals like the sales journal, purchases journal, the cash receipts, and so on. Prepared schedules. Client prepared schedules. Client prepared schedules. The auditor may also have schedules, which I didn't document. IMN. Let me call this N. These are what they are referred to as lead schedules. Lead schedules. So these are in terms of the audit firm. Schedules auditor. Then we may have client prepared schedules. These are schedules prepared by the client at the auditor's request. Like we may have fixed asset register, the detailed listings of inventory. These are then verified by the auditor. Client prepared schedules. Lead schedules, on the other hand, that are internal to the auditor, these comprise summaries of balances of related general ledger accounts that will be presented as a single line in the financial statements. So you have client prepared schedules and lead schedules as prepared by the auditor. Now the fourth document that is obtained from the client is articles of incorporation. Articles of incorporation. Articles of incorporation or bylaws. These are documents outlining the legal structure and the governance of the entity, what we sometimes refer to as the constitution of the company. Constitution of the company. Board minutes, number 5. Board minutes and board committee minutes. Board minutes and committee minutes also form part of the documents obtained from the client. This is record of significant decisions made by management and the governance bodies. 6. Contracts and agreements. Contracts and agreements. This could be loan agreements, lease agreements, and significant sale contracts. Internal policies. Internal policies also form part of the documents obtained from the client. Internal policies and procedures, manuals, etc. Internal policies, procedures, and manuals. This is documentation of the client's operation and accounting policies. H. Management representation letter is also generated from the client. This is a letter from client management acknowledging the responsibilities and confirming certain matters to the auditor. There are times when the auditor may require the management to do some letters acknowledging certain facts or providing certain information. That forms part of this documentation. Prior year audit files. Prior year audit files. Prior year audit files. These are files for reference and also continuity, especially the permanent file. We'll be in our next session looking at the types of files. One of them is the permanent file. So these are the documents obtained from the client. Documents obtained from the client. Then we have documents obtained from third parties. Documents obtained from third parties. Let me have it here. 3. Documents obtained third parties. So we have documents that are internal to the audit firm. These are generated by the audit firm. These are documents that are obtained from the company that's being audited. Then the auditor can also obtain working papers from third parties. Because this is one party, this is a second party, then we have the third party. So what are these documents? One could be bank confirmations. Bank confirmations. 1. Bank confirmations. This is direct confirmation from banks regarding account balances and loan details. The auditor candidates can obtain the details about the balances of the company, the cash balances, by looking at the financial statements of the company that is being audited. But the auditor can confirm that by getting information directly from the bank, what you are referring to as bank confirmation. If you are auditing company A and you have information regarding the bank balances, because the company will have record in the financial statements of bank balance. So the auditor may want to confirm if the bank balance as presented in the financial statements is accurate. And for the auditor to do that, the auditor may write to the bank requesting to know what is the bank balance of the company that is being audited. So that's information from third party. The bank is a third party. There is also accounts receivable and payable confirmations. accounts receivable. These are just debtors, and accounts payable confirmations. Just like the case of the bank, the auditor can also confirm debtors' balances and creditors' balances by writing directly to the debtors and the creditors, requesting them to confirm the balances that they are owed or they owe the company that is being audited. So debtors and creditors, these are third parties. 3, legal confirmations. So apart from the bank, the debtors, and creditors, we also have other type of confirmations we are referring to as legal confirmations. These are responses from the client's legal counsel regarding litigation, claims, and assessments. These records may be in the books of the company that is being recorded, that is being audited, but the auditor can also seek legal confirmation. He can communicate with the lawyers of the company to confirm claims, to confirm litigation, and also assessments. 4, valuation reports. Valuation reports, these are reports from specialists for complex assets, for complex contracts or agreements like the derivatives and so on. There are times when the auditor may not have the relevant expertise or skills to audit certain areas of the company, like derivatives and valuations of complex assets. So in such a case, the auditor may rely on third parties, like valuers and so on. These valuers may do a report we are calling valuation reports. Correspondence with third parties is another source. Correspondence with third parties. This could be letters or emails from external parties relevant to the audit. So these are 5 documents that may be obtained from third parties. And that marks the end of the first part of this lesson, which is the sources of audit documentation. Let's discuss the features. Features of audit documentation. Features are attributes. Features are characteristics. Features are characteristics. So what are the features? Features of effective working papers. What characteristics? We have highlighted the sources of these working papers. So what are the features of effective audit working papers or audit documentation? That is a question we want to answer. What are the features of effective audit working papers? Now, effective audit working papers should possess several key characteristics to fulfill their purposes. One is completeness. Audit working papers should be complete. Ness is a key feature. Information should be complete. They should contain all information and evidence necessary to support the auditor's conclusions and opinion. And an experienced auditor with no prior connection to the audit should be able to understand the work performed and the conclusions that are reached. You recall, candidates, we mentioned something to do with the peer review. There are times when the auditor's work is required to be audited. So those who are coming to audit the auditor's work rely on working papers. Such reviewers should be able to get all the information that is required and even understand how the auditor reached at the conclusion that was reached. So key feature is completeness. Number 2 is clarity. Clarity and understandability. Clarity and understandability. The first one is completeness. That means that there should be no information that is missing. All information that is required to be available should be available within the audit working papers. Number 2, this information should be clear and understandable. Working papers should be clearly and concisely written using appropriate terminology. That is to mean that jargon should be avoided and explanation should be easy to follow. Clarity and understandability. 3. Accuracy. We are discussing features of effective audit working papers. They ought to be accurate. All figures, all facts, and statements must be accurate and agree with the underlying records. Sufficiency and appropriateness. Number 4. Sufficiency, appropriateness. Sufficient means enough. All right? It should be, audit working papers should be sufficient and also appropriate. The evidence of documentary should be sufficient in quantity and appropriate in quality to support the audit findings and audit opinions. There is a feature related to relevance. Relevance. Only information pertinent to the audit objectives and conclusions should be included. Information that is not necessary to support the audit opinion is not relevant and should not be part of audit documentation or to be relevant. Legibility and neatness. Legibility and neatness. Legibility and neatness. Only, what does that mean? Legibility and neatness. That means candidates, whether in physical or electronic form, working papers should be presented clearly and organized in a professional manner. 7. Indexing and cross-referencing. This is a key feature. Indexing and cross-referencing. That is to mean that there ought to be a logical system of indexing and cross-references that allows for easy navigation within the audit file and efficient review. Signature. We also have signature. Another feature is in relation to signature, date, and reviewer sign-off. Signature and reviewer sign-off. What does that mean? What does that mean? That means that each working paper should be signed and dated by the preparer, the one who prepares that document. If it is an audit plan, it should be signed by the one who prepares it, who prepared it, and dated. When was it done? If it is an audit program, who prepared it, put your name, append your signature. Give the date when that was done. That's what I mean by signature, date, and reviewer's sign-off. Each working paper should be signed and dated by the preparer, and all review stages should also be documented with the reviewer signatures and dates indicating the level of review performed. Clear audit, objective, and conclusion. Number 9, objectives and conclusion. Clear audit, objectives, and conclusion. Each working paper or section should clearly state the audit objective it addresses and the conclusion reached regarding that objective. That's the meaning of clear audit, objective, and conclusion. Of evidence. Another feature is in relation to evidence of supervision and review. Let me add review. Evidence of supervision and review. What does that mean? That means that the working papers should demonstrate that the audit work has been properly supervised and reviewed at all levels. So these are 10 characteristics of effective audit working papers. And that marks the end of our today's lesson. In this lesson, we've discussed 2 areas: sources of working papers and features of working papers. We categorize the sources of working papers into three. One is the documents prepared by the auditor. Number two, we have documents obtained from the client. Number three, we have documents obtained from third parties. The documents obtained or prepared by the auditor include 1. Audit plan, 2. Audit programs, 3. Risk assessment and materiality calculation, 4. Internal control evaluation documentation, 5. Testing documentation, 6. Sample selection, 7. Test results, 8. Reconciliations, 9. Analysis of ledger accounts, 10. Journal adjustments, 11. Memoranda and summaries, 12. Time budgets. Then we have review notes, and lastly, lead schedules. We went further to list the documents obtained from the client, which include financial statements. Number 2, ledger and journals. Number 3, client prepared schedules, like the fixed asset movement schedule. Number 4, we have articles of incorporation or the constitution of the company. Number 5, board minutes and committee minutes. 6, contracts and agreements. 7, internal policies, procedures, and manuals. 8, management representation letters. Number 10, we have prior year audit files. Finally, we analyze the audits, the documentation that is prepared by the third parties, which include bank reconciliation. Number 2, accounts receivable and payable confirmations. Number 3, legal confirmations. Number 4, valuation reports. Number 5, we have correspondence with third parties. Then in this lesson, again, we have discussed the features of effective audit documentation. The first feature is completeness. Number 2, clarity and understandability. Number 3, accuracy. Number 4, appropriateness and sufficiency. Number 5, relevance. 6, legibility and neatness. Number 7, indexing and cross-referencing. Number 9, signature, date, and reviewer's sign-off. Number 8, that's number 8. Number 9, we have clear audit objectives and conclusions. Then lastly, evidence of supervision and review. And that is the end of the lesson on sources and features of working papers. Bye-bye.